Welcome to Tailboard Talk, a fourth shift fitcast. The mission of Tailboard Talk and the fourth shift fitness is to educate and train fire service personnel to increase durability and decrease the potential for injuries and their associated costs. My name is Chris Morella, owner and founder of Fourth Shift Fitness. I'll use my experience as a personal trainer, strength coach, and 15-year veteran of the fire service to deliver tips, tricks, lessons, and information specifically geared towards the health and wellness of firefighters and paramedics. Each episode, you'll leave with immediate deliverables that will improve performance and resilience and keep you in the fight through your career and into retirement. Let's get into it. Tell me all about it.
So we did his consumption drill.
Yeah.
And it was him and someone else who's new, who's like a squirrel, who easily doubled his capacity.
I can't remember who was even in his class.
I wasn't sure if I should say names on this or not. It's
Okay. I can edit out several things.
So yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to. The way this
he
is gonna
gets
go.
done and like I want to say he started bells at like 7 minutes and was like in the 12s he was done.
All done. Yeah.
And then so then going a lot more.
Yeah.
And so then the excuses start coming of like, I could do more. If I had another bottle here, I could just keep going. It's just, I just breathe so hard that I run out of air and and so then he asked about breathing. He's like, is there a way I can breathe better? I'm like, you can, box breathe. And I kind of told him what that was. So then I saw him at something, a drill or something, a couple weeks later. And it was not more than a month later. And he goes, yeah, I've been doing that box breathing. I got my resting heart rate, recovery rate back down into the 45s. I'm like,
perfect.
Stop. I'm like,
oh man. Like, where do you start? Like, yeah, you can definitely breathe better if you're not in such dog shit shape.
yeah.
So here's the way to breathe better. Don't be so goddamn tired by doing regular stuff.
Yeah. Don't be 2.5 spins on the scale. And by the time you're 24.
Dude, is it wrong to be so frustrated? I feel like having fitness businesses and being in the fire service, we have almost an obligation to be more understanding of out of shape people that are in the fire service. Like we have a greater idea and concept of the range of health that makes people out of shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
It frustrates me to no end to see chubby people get hired in the fire service. And I don't know if that's unfair or not. And I don't know if it's justified or not, but it drives me absolutely crazy.
It drives me crazy.
I shouldn't say it makes me that angry that they got hired. It makes me angry that they, like V used to say, they didn't come and kidnap you and make you take the test.
Right.
Right? You knew probably at least a year ahead of time that you were going to pursue this job at our department.
Right, yeah.
And in that year, even if you come and tell me that you dropped 60 pounds in that year to get to where you are now, I can live with that.
Mm-hmm.
If I saw you a year ago and you were the same shape you are when you start your first day of shift and it's not a good shape, that drives me insane.
Yeah.
Because you should know what you're in store for. You've been through the academy.
Right.
You know, hopefully, what the job entails a little bit if you're not just an athlete walking in and trying to get a cool job,
mm-hmm.
right? But we've gotten them time and time again.
Yeah.
And then we tell them, like, this is when you should probably be at your peak and you're going to slow down over the next 35 years.
Right.
So if you're coming in looking like this bag of milk body you got,
mm-hmm.
where are we going? And the chance that you're going to get off probation, and especially with the probation we have that's so tough, the chance you're going to get off that and then get remotivated to do more stuff
mm-hmm.
is not realistic.
Right.
And then you're in a hole.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it frustrates me so much. I guess I do, obviously, but God, dude, just drives me crazy. Because then you get put in the position like this kid at the fire that he's the new guy. He went through a bottle and a half, and he was trying to throw a 28-foot ladder, a two-man throw, which makes it even more frustrating. And it was slow to the point where me, not on his crew, just a bystander doing another function adjacent to him, yelled at him
Yeah.
and rudely reminded him that he's not getting paid by the hour to throw that ladder. And his officer was like, what is going on? And the guy who was healing the ladder basically took it from 30 degrees and pulled it the rest of the way up because he could not wait for this kid to throw this ladder anymore.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, like, are you guys 3 bottles deep right now? Because everybody was working. We went through 4.
Right.
And he's like, that's a bottle and a half, and this is what he's doing. That corner of the fire was so difficult, and putting the ladder up to the roof line was going to accomplish a couple of things, but it was going to make everybody's job a lot better, the hole they were going to cut. And if I've been babysitting this corner and troubleshooting it for 20 minutes, and then they're going to send you to me to make my life easier on this corner, and you show up and that's your performance level,
Right.
I'd rather you just not even be there. Like, I'm 3 bottles in, tell me what to do, and I'll figure it out.
Right.
With a little more aggression than you're capable of putting forward with that body you got. Okay. Frustrates me.
Yeah.
And I know it's unfair, and it's probably not a popular thing
It's not unfair
to express.
Though. I mean, it's an embarrassment, I mean, like, we operate off of this worst case scenario situation, but the problem is that we could face the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And do you want to, we don't want people, we rely on other people, and it's like, it's one thing to say, well, yeah, we won't be able to drag his fat ass out of there, but it's the other thing to say, if I really got in a pinch, could he pull me out of there, know? And that's the thing that I get most upset about is you're going to get somebody who's being compensated to maintain a standard and they're not at the standard, and unfortunately our department has nothing to do about it, but it's just a personal thing, and that person has just made a personal decision to say, you know what, I don't care enough.
And that's going to be the eventual, more not debate, but the two sides of the story is like, well, then the department should provide for me. The department should provide a trainer and a facility and time on shift to do it, and all these resources, and that would solve my problems.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would, because that would solve your problems for maybe 1 out of every 3 days for an hour. But you got a lot of time outside of that hour on that day, as well as a ton of time on your 2 days off, regardless if you're working overtime or not. That's not going to solve your problem. And it's another, I think, unpopular opinion, because there's always needs to be a push for a greater presence of health and wellness and fitness in the fire service. And I get that. But it can't be just a zero fault thing to the individual, where it's like everything's on the organization to provide everything for you. And I know that some people don't like that because it's a much easier thing to yell because they know it'll never happen. Right. But it takes, I'm going to, off the top of my head, just make an arbitrary number, 80%, go ahead and refute it, you can't. It takes 80% of a personal investment or commitment to make it work. And you being able to do it on shift is a nice little treat of 20%. That should be there in some capacity or some form. Yeah. But if it's not there, that shouldn't be the reason you stack on 30 pounds in the first 5 years of your career.
Right.
That little bit of personal responsibility or personal investment is where I think a lot of people lack, and where I tend to alienate a lot of people, because I want to be able to provide for people that want to get better, right? I also have very little interest in trying to provide for people who just don't care or don't want to make that personal investment, or are going to rely on me to be their 80% motivation. Like, that's just not, I don't have 80% for myself. I'm not going to give you what I don't have for myself. So I don't know, maybe a little ranty,
but it may be, but it's deserved, And like, I try and take a step back too and understand, like, we came from athletic backgrounds, so like working out necessarily wasn't necessarily a love, but working was, working hard at something.
Right.
And I think we get less and less athletes that start at the fire department. And so there isn't a previous background of effort given. And I wouldn't say that it has to be athletes either. It's also trades too. You don't get plumbers and carpenters and people that have been out being physical, And so now they've accepted this occupation that demands some physicality, but it's not something that was bred in them for 25 years leading up to it.
Right.
And now you're asking them all of a sudden to actively participate in something aggressively that they probably don't like to do, and that's why they avoided it for that long or didn't compete and stuff. It's not wrong or right. It's just I think I can maybe understand that side of things of like people just didn't come from the same background as us,
Yeah.
On the flip side, though, it's like it's not the end of it. It's not the excuse, but I can just see that. Here's another one that's
fathomable.
Here's another one. So we have some newer people floating around the department now, and one of them is going to be testing for the department. He's if he's not 21, he's turning 21 shortly, and he went to school for this, and this is what he's known that he's wanted to do, and he failed his first CPAT. He was telling me, so he was taking his second CPAT last week, I think, and had failed his first one, and I was like, I'm like, was it the step mill? Because I know if you haven't done that, when you load 75 pounds, it's hard. He's like, no. He's like, believe it or not, it was the ventilation, the roof simulator.
Like the pike pole one?
The pike pole one, yeah. And I was like, really? He's like, I'm like, you just ran out of time? He's like, no, I just quit.
Good.
What?
Good.
I'm like, you did what? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I don't know if I just didn't eat that day or something, but I just stopped. I told the guy I didn't have it anymore. And I'm like,
got really sleepy.
I'm like, get out of here.
Please take it again.
Yeah. So that's just another thing that I can't fathom is just stopping. Like,
right.
You're going to have to like pull me off of that thing or tell me my time's up, but I'm not just going to look over the guy and be like, yeah, I think I'm just done, Like, I couldn't even fathom that, you know?
This is tough, man. I think I'll live to fight another day. I don't even think, like you're saying, I don't even think it's a generational thing. Like, that's always the easy, low-hanging fruit of, like, this generation is the softest. Mm-hmm. It's definitely an exposure thing, like you're saying. Maybe that's more of a generational movement. Man, but I just don't know what to do with it. I do know what to do with it. It's just uncomfortable for everybody all around. Is
it just an avoidance thing now that you hope that you're never going to be put in a situation like where it's like because you've been exposed, like, and we've talked about this, like we've had some people who've been exposed in our skills evaluations that we do, and is the hope that they just get past those and then they avoid that for the rest of their career and hope that when the time comes, someone else more suitable is ready to do that for them?
I would say, yeah. I mean, that's definitely as foreign as that sounds to us, that's certainly some people's approach.
Yeah.
100%. That's absolutely some people's approach of like, what are the chances this is going to happen?
Right.
And then they bank on, not even like that I could if I really had to, they'd bank on the fact of like, well, this is a team sport. And if I miss something, I got 4 guys around me that can help me out.
Right.
And that's real. That's an actual parachute because that happens. Mm-hmm. Just like throwing that ladder, another guy did twice the amount of work to compensate for the one guy who couldn't.
Right.
So that's an actual thing. I also just think that I hate the word complacency, but you can survive in this profession for a long, long time being really not in good shape. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth of it. But it comes down to how ineffective, I don't even say how effective, how ineffective you want to be when you have to operate at a 7, 8, or 9 out of 10
right.
once every 5 or 6 years. Because it's relatively seldom.
Right.
But the warning I guess I could give people is like, we were talking to people after this fire. You can rely on your policy that says after 2 bottles you go to rehab, or you can rely on the real world, which says that now we moved our packs from quarter service alarms to third service alarms. Mm-hmm. So in our consumption course we run, we've seen it go from 15 to 17 minutes of working time and then 7 to 9 minutes of bell, right? Mm-hmm. Roughly. Now it's, like you said, 11 to 15 minutes of working time and 9 to 12 minutes of bell.
Yeah.
But that bell's not working time in a real fire,
right?
Or in a real incident. So you've cut your time down substantially. Mm-hmm. So now 3 bottles is going to be the norm. Like
Right.
for you to do 2 bottles and out, we're going to be at the second level box for everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, we're at the 3 bottles, maybe pushing 4 for a real incident. I think. So we went through 4 active bottles in this last fire, and then we put on a 5th one for mop up, and just because we don't want to be in a gross, stinky environment for kind of poking around and looking at the building after the fact. But that's going to be more the norm than not. And so if you're banking on the policy of 2 and out, and you're in a department where you rely on mutual aid above all, you might be still deep in this thing by the time your second bottle's done.
Yeah.
You might be nowhere near getting relieved or no viable companies on scene. And that's a tough pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when the ego takes over. Most guys fall back to like the wall. The fires go out eventually.
Right.
If you just wait long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And, then my department should staff it better, or we should have this piece of equipment, or that's when the ego protects you, and you start blaming other people.
I think on the other side, sometimes we protect those people too. We go, well, he's a good medic, or
Sure.
he's a nice kid.
Sure.
He's trying hard, Yeah. And I think we do that a lot too,
Well, that's the uncomfortable part is I don't think I've ever heard someone speak harshly to an overweight or out of shape person to the point of saying like, I don't want to work with you because you're a liability.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
No.
I certainly haven't said it. I've taken different approaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a more professional and actually like helpful approach.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean people aren't thinking it. Katie dislikes several people that are on her department because she sees them as threats to my personal safety on incidents, right? I do think, though, there is an opportunity with the new hires and people in their first 3 to 4 years to have that frank of a discussion and tell them basically like the level of fitness and capacity you're coming with now is not acceptable to me.
Right.
You may be able to pass the CPAP and you may be able to pass probation. And if you want to fall back on that as your defense of like, well, I passed the test, so what are you going to do?
Right.
You can have that attitude too.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to all kinds of different problems throughout the department.
Mm-hmm.
But just know that this is not acceptable. It's acceptable to whatever standard we've set for you, the lowest standard possible to keep you employed. But on an operational standard and a personal pride and actual functional capacity standard, this is not okay.
Yeah.
I would like to see more of those conversations happen.
Mm-hmm.
Tough part is that has to come from somebody who's also going to uphold that side of the bargain, right? And most people just aren't wired like us or ingrained in enough like us to make that sort of commitment and also that bold of a statement to call someone out and also not have a little bit of skeleton in their closet, their health closet to be waved in their face.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm not looking to go be the hitman for everybody's, dad bod. But if you're in your first 1 to 5 years of your career and you're coming to me looking like chewed bubble gum, and when you tuck in your shirt, it's full.
Yeah.
Right?
Your belt buckle faces down.
Yeah. If you're coming to me like that, know that it's not acceptable to me and I don't like it. And if you change it, I'll be happy for you and I'll help you change it. But you're going to have to change it. Like it has to change.
Yeah.
And I guess it doesn't have to change at all, but it has to change.
Right.
I'd like it to change.
Or these conversations will stay status quo.
This won't be the last time. And we're just going to, we hire general population, right? But we have to internally set the standard of what's acceptable.
Right.
And then that spins into like the mandatory fitness assessment conversation, which is another unpopular opinion for a lot of people.
One. Very tricky one. I was just talking, were we talking about Plainfield? Plainfield, so up until 9:30 it's fitness time. And so there's no inspections, pub ed, no multi-company training or anything, but everybody that's on shift does some sort of physical something.
Really?
Up until 9:30, yeah.
Somebody was just telling me the other day that they had a Waukegan, I think, did that. They had a type of fella up there for a while, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure, but
and he said that you get the typical guy sitting on the office chair on the treadmill with his feet up on the railings reading his paper, because that's what he does every day for his mandatory fitness,
Yeah.
He's like, but I want to use the treadmill. He's like, no, I'm using it. And so you're always going to have those guys, right?
Yeah.
But I would like that.
And that's fine, because that's going to be the vast minority,
Yeah.
But you're going to get the people that need something to do something,
Yeah.
and you'll always have 10% making noise, and
Right.
that's fine at that point. But
Yeah.
that you catch some of the people that won't do it unless they're told to do it, and then they'll do it,
Yeah. I mean, I could speak equally as strong for having that plus a trainer come in from the outside and provide it for the people, because that would provide a huge value, and kind of talk in the face of what I said before of you need a strong commitment, and then the stuff that happens on shift is a perk.
Right.
I definitely understand both sides, but
That's the thing is, like, the trainer, like, I know it seems like a big cost to outlay, but if you told a trainer, a good trainer, that they were going to work Monday through Friday with normal hours, they didn't have to do the bookend hours, and they were going to get paid between $50,000 and $70,000 a year, you would have no problem filling that position.
Oh yeah.
And you can justify that super easily, because, at our department, I don't know what the exact number is, but I would guess that every day that a person is off, it's probably between $2,000 and $3,000 to cover that 24-hour shift, because you're paying that person, you're paying the person to come in on overtime to cover them.
Yeah.
You're paying all the expenses that go, around, whether it's legal or whether it's the insurance, premiums or all that.
Right.
So I'll multiply that by 60 days off a year, which I'm sure our department exceeds
Oh yeah.
in a month, and all of a sudden that $70,000 towards a trainer of proactive stuff is, that's a pretty good deal at that point, a good investment,
I can't think of one place that's instituted one that's had a negative result.
No.
I can only imagine the only negative result would be just the actual trainer being bad, or being a bad fit, or being flighty. But any kind of worthwhile program that's put in there is going to be a positive return.
Yeah.
It's just going to be, it's a big amount of money for a new thing.
Yep.
For not a
And
one-time
it's not
cost
the way
thing.
we've always done it.
It's definitely not. It's definitely not. So I would definitely like to see that, but I still think, for as good as that would be, it would help some people get involved. It would help some people get interested, and would continue the good things that people are already doing. We just need to shore. That's the shoring up part. That's the chalk in the door part that I talked about before, and really, I suppose, letting your ego down and getting past all the common taglines of why it's stupid to work out or someone else should be doing it for you, and then doing like the ask why 3 times thing and make yourself really uncomfortable as to why you should be in better shape.
Right.
That's what's going to help people and get that 80% in. It's a tough sell.
It's tough sell.
Tough sell and tough conversation. Let's see. That's roughly 24 minutes so far. I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good little bitch session. Listen, if you guys disagree with what Curt and I are saying, the first thing you should do is go on the website and donate money to show us how much you hate it. Upwards of 5 to 7 coffees will prove to us that you not like what we're talking about. If you do like it, what we're talking about, the best thing you can do is give us some coffee and buy some coffee to caffeinate us more, so we have more old guy rants about this weak generation that we're hiring in the fire service that's ruining everything and softening up the world for us. In any case, go donate some money so we can buy coffee and have a good time. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out, and we'll talk to you guys soon.